أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على البشير النذير السراج المنير سيدنا ونبينا وشفيئنا الخاتم لما سبق الفاتح لمن غلق المعلن الحق بالحق أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل عليه وعلى أهل بيته مظاهر جمالك وجلالك الذين كلامهم نور وأمرهم رشد ووصيتهم التقوى وفعلهم الخير وعادتهم الإحسان. صدق الله تعالى حيث يقول وهو أصدق القائلين وقوله الحق. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. صلوات. Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I begin in the name of the most merciful Master, the most magnificent. He, the Most High, is a Rabbul Alameen, the nourisher, the sustainer. I begin by giving thanks to Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's most choicest blessings be upon all the prophets, especially the final prophet, his holy family, and his pious companions. So I titled this sermon today, The Price of a Dream, and it reflects the state and dreams of those living in continuous and non-stop oppression. So in part one of today's sermon, I will discuss the plight of the Palestinians in relation to the Quran, Karbala, and Imam Ali's khutbah of the Muttaqeen, and how we can take lessons from them as individuals and as a global community. And in the second part, in part two, I'll speak about the possible solutions and what lessons we can take from the Prophet and Imams in order to combat and fight against injustice and oppression. However, before we begin, please can we have a few moments of silence for all those innocents killed barbarically and being ethnically cleansed all over the world. And please recite Al-Fatiha. So now, these moments of silence, maybe it was 10 seconds or 20 seconds, however long or short it was, this is a luxury that many people do not have. So what we've just done now, for many people around the world who are being oppressed and persecuted for simply living, their moments are filled with the sounds of bombs, and before their very own eyes, the life that they once knew is being destroyed. From their neighborhoods, to their schools, to their churches, to their mosques, to their hospitals. So please, everyone, I implore you, and I want to stress this fact that please remember your moments of silence and reflection, moments of quiet reflection. And the Fatiha we just done is someone else's idea of freedom, is someone else's idea. This is someone else's dream. And in places where peace is a distant yet seemingly impossible hope, that every living moment is filled with the sounds of bombs, screams, intimidation, bullying, and torture. So even us coming here today with little or less care, going into our cars, starting the ignition and coming into here, this is someone else's idea of a dream, that we can come here safely, we can inshallah go back home safely. This is someone else's idea of a luxury. So these things that maybe we consider small and trivial is a luxury in other parts of the world. Whether that is the Palestinians or the Hazaras or the Muslims in Parachinar, or the Uyghur Muslims in China, or people suffering in Congo, in Africa, and the list is endless. Our moments of silence and our comforts, which may seem so small and so trivial, so insignificant, is someone else's dream. And I hope we can pay attention to this fact because it is our reality and it is not a reality for many others. So, the price of a dream. Everyone in this world has dreams, whether that is being a parent or being a footballer, a celebrity, a successful scholar, so on and so forth. Everyone has dreams and aspirations. And usually, the price of our dream is sacrifice and hard work, sleeping early, waking up early, or working long hours into the night, learning new languages, new skills, and so on. But recently, I watched a video where a group of Palestinian children were talking about their dreams and their aspirations. Some said, I want to be a pilot, I want to be a doctor, a journalist, a footballer, a pharmacist, and so on. I was like, yeah, okay, I can resonate with that. But then I heard the other children who expressed their dreams. One small child said, I want to be a shaheed, I want to be a martyr. Why? Because I'm so hungry, I cannot continue living. I want to die. Why? Because I heard there is food in heaven. My dream is to taste sugar. My dream is to see my mother, my father, my siblings, my friends. My dream is to go to school. My dream is to eat chocolate. And then slowly, I became more distant from these people and their dreams. Because their dreams are really not dreams for me. Because I can order food, crisps, chocolates, you name it, sat at home. And then I thought, what is the price of these children's dreams? Because instead of sugar, they taste the wreckage of their destroyed home. Instead of smelling a freshly baked cake, they smell decaying bodies. Instead of being assured by their parents, they see them being buried in rubble before their very own eyes. So, really, I ask everyone here today, what is the price of your dream? And what is the price of a simple dream in a land like Palestine or Congo or Parachinar? Please reflect on this. And for me now, after watching such videos, my dreams have shifted. Now I want to be brave. I want to have courage. I want to have taqwa and be disattached from this world. And in actual fact, I learnt it from these small children in Gaza, from the mothers and fathers in Palestine, and from those families who keep attending Juma khutbahs and the majalis of Imam Hussein in Afghanistan, not knowing whether they will return home safely. I learnt a million lessons from such people. I saw that whenever these people are bombed and killed, continuously they recite the adhkar of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They continuously recite Hasbunallah ni'mal wakeel. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the sorter of my affairs and He alone is sufficient for me. And I learned steadfastness from such people. And all of a sudden, I was becoming more unshackled, more and more unshackled. The shackles of this world were loosening their grip upon me. And looking at these Palestinian children, young and old, I was becoming more dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I saw where my faith is lacking and where their faith is actually not lacking. And I was seeing the reality of the world for what it was. Bloodthirsty, arrogant, greedy leaders, whereby they want to acquire all the oil, the gas, and the minerals of the world. And I thought even if they had all of the world's resources, still they would not be happy. And you see today, every country which has oil, gas, minerals, or abundant water is being plundered. And there's no value for human life as long as they acquire this oil and this gas and so on. And people are being massacred in their hundreds and thousands for a bit of land, for a bit of oil, for a bit of money. However, on the opposite side, there's a dichotomy here. On one side, we're seeing murder, rape, land being stolen. On the other side, we're seeing real life examples of piety, of taqwa, of people constantly saying, Hasbunallah ni'mal wakil, that God He's got my affairs in order and He's watching over me. So in this dichotomy, we're seeing two different sides. Hence, why my dreams shifted from being worldly to being more spiritual. And I learned it from children 2, 3, 4 years old, all the way up to 90 years old. And these stories and these videos were really reminiscent of the stories we hear about Karbala, the patience of Sayyidah Zainab, the bravery of Ali al-Akbar, the steadfastness of Imam Hussein. And this was apparent in front of my very own eyes, video after video, post after post. And it was apparent in such people who constantly recite the kalima, their house has gone, their hospital has gone, their mosque, their church has gone. But their response is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there. La ilaha illallah. These people were even seeing their whole generations being wiped out. And it was in these circumstances I saw the true identity of being a Muslim. I saw real life examples of people mentioned by Imam Ali in the khutbah of Muttaqeen, of the khutbah of the God-pious individuals. And this was being shown to me in real time. And this is something I'm going to touch upon later, how I connected the plight of the Palestinians with the khutbah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And then I came to the realization that Palestine is not actually occupied. It is the world that is occupied and preoccupied. And it is only Palestine and the Palestinians who are truly free, who are truly determined and defiant in the face of such horror, that young children say, no matter what, we will not leave. Even if we are martyred, people will come after us and carry on our mission. I saw young boys and girls speaking like army generals. And in this moment, I never felt so distant from my Muslim brothers and sisters in this part of the world. That such young children are speaking about martyrdom and death and the next generation when they barely hit their teens. So in actual reality, we are not freeing Palestine, but Palestine is freeing us. Such beautiful souls showing us that no matter what, we have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I saw true bravery and courage reminiscent of times gone by. And I felt I was being transported back to the time of Rasulullah, back to the time of Badr and Uhud and Hunayn that we hear about, back to the bravery of Imam Ali, the sacrifice of Imam Hussein. And I'm not saying these words lightly. I actually mean it 100%. Because I also read a post from this woman in Gaza, and she stated, I now know what it feels like when Imam Hussein called out, is there anyone to help us? And no one responded. And when I read this, it actually truly hit home. Year after year, I've been attending the majalis of Imam Hussein, and these words did not hit me as hard as when this woman said it. Because when she said it with such feeling and such desperation that we're calling out for help and no one's helping us, and she relayed it to Karbala, and how impactful it was on me, it really, really opened my eyes. As the Palestinians were calling out to the Arab leaders, to the Pakistan army, the only thing more louder than the bombs was the deafening silence of such people. people who we call leaders, who continued their oil exports and their commercial businesses with the Zionist state. Similarly, the Muslims in India and Kashmir, let down by their scholars they looked up to and fought for. They looked for such people for help. However, instead, these countries and representatives of such scholars were making deals with India whilst the Muslims needed help. And the same case is for the Hazaras and the Houthis and the Uyghur Muslims and so on. It's the same case, but in different parts of the world. These people who relied on the Muslim leaders and scholars, how must have they felt in this moment calling out? They must have felt heartbroken and distraught, being let down by the most powerful people and the most powerful nations in the world. The ones who control the oil and gas. They could literally impose embargoes and put a stop to this. However, they are assisting in genocide. Blinded by their greed and their affirmation, they want confirmation from the other that, look, we are like you. And I think from the silence of such leaders and the lack of help from such people and nations, it made the Palestinians more defiant and united. That, okay, these people will not help us, we will rely on God and help ourselves, no matter how dire our circumstances are. And I will reiterate this message. The amount of parallels I see with what is going on in Palestine and Karbala is truly remarkable. On the first level, we see the incredible amount of patience, steadfastness, loyalty, and bravery, which echoes that of Imam Hussein and his camp. That whenever a person loses their entire family, their entire surroundings, they reply that I do this all for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He, the Most High, is watching over me. And I can only bear this because of God. People reciting Quran during surgery because there's no anesthesia. There's nothing to numb the pain. People reciting verses of the Quran to console themselves in such dire and horrific circumstances. And we saw this in Karbala when our beloved Imam Hussein, the night before the massacre, is reported that his tent had the sound of buzzing of bees. That was because people were reciting the Quran, they were worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doing the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I used to ask this question, that what causes Imam Hussein to see his sons butchered, his family and companions, and still call out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and still rely upon Him with utmost hope, and increase his love and worship of God? This was a question that I always pondered over, and I became even more perplexed when I saw this in real time. That what is inside these Palestinian people, no matter their age, young and old, from children to 90 plus years old, that they're so resilient and so resolute and so defiant in their nature that they've opened the eyes of the entire globe. So what I did was I actually looked at some of the verses they were reciting from chapter 3, verse 169 to 174. If you want to open it, I can give you a few moments to open it. Chapter 3, verse 169 to 174. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. It says, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قَتَلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ rather أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ yurzaqun. So never think of those martyred in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as dead. Bal, in fact, ahya'un, they are alive. Inda rabbihim, with their Lord. Doing what? They're being sustained, well provided for. فرحين بما آتاهم الله من فضله ويستبشرون بالذين لم يلحقوا بهم من خلفهم الله خوف عليهم وَلَهُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. And it says, they are rejoicing in Allah's bounties and being delighted for those yet to join them. There will be no fear for them, nor will they grieve. So on the first level, they believe they are martyred and they're being provided for by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hence why they have no fear and they do not grieve. And the verse goes on to say, يَسْتَبْشِرُونَ بِنِعْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَفَضْلٍ وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُضِيءُ أَجْرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And this is, these people, they are joyful for receiving Allah's grace and bounty, and that Allah does not deny the reward of the believers. الَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِلَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا أَصَابَهُمُ اللَّهُ الْفَرْحِ لِلَّذِينَ أَحْسَنُوا مِنْهُمْ وَاتَّقُوا أَجْرٌ عَظِيمٌ. So as for those who responded to the call of Allah and His Messenger after their injury, those of them who did good were mindful of Allah will have ajrun azim, a great reward. And those who are warned, your enemies have mobilized their forces against you, so fear them. What happened? The Quran tells us the warning only made them grow stronger in faith. And they replied, وَقَالُوا حَسْبُنَ اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. They replied that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone is sufficient as an aid for us and He is the best protector. So they returned with Allah's favor and grace, suffering no harm, for they sought to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So looking at these verses of people reciting them in the ambulances, going to pick up dead bodies, going to tend to people who are martyred or are injured, I saw that these verses ignite something deep within their soul. They believe that their members who have been killed are in a better place. They're being looked after by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are always mindful of God. They never fear the enemy. Instead, they say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient for us and He is the best protector. And they suffer no harm. And I don't know if you came across this video, a story of a Palestinian mother I should say, when a bomb struck nearby them and her child was running and she goes to her child, run, come my way, come my way. And next thing you know, the child has been martyred. And then the child actually appeared in his mother's dream. And the mother asked, I was calling you towards me. I was saying, run towards me. What happened? He goes, oh mother, I was running towards you. And next thing you know, I was running in the gardens of heaven. And the mother asked, what did you feel in this moment? He goes, I felt but a small pinch. Subhanallah, that these verses that they're reciting, they're actually witnessing them, they're actually experiencing them, whether they are alive or whether they have passed away. And earlier I mentioned that I will link some excerpts of the Khutbah Muttaqeen with what I'm seeing in Palestine. So when Imam Ali Islam, he describes the Muttaqeen, the God-conscious individuals, I linked it to some of the videos that I seen recently. So in this khutbah, the Imam states about the Muttaqeen, the greatness of the Creator is seated in their heart. And so everything else appears very small in their eyes. Thus, to such people, paradise is as though they see it in front of them and enjoying its favors. And to them, hell is as if they are seeing it and suffering punishment in it. He says, the world is aimed at them, but they are not aimed at the world. The world captured them, but they freed themselves from it by a ransom. And this excerpt, plus the Quranic verses we went through, were seen in not just one or two Palestinian people suffering, but the majority of people echoed these sentiments mentioned in the Quran and this khutbah of the Muttaqeen, that no matter what calamity they are facing, they always remember and are cognizant of the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hence, they will not fear no soldiers, no state, no IDF, nor the bombs, nor any threats they receive, because their only true fear is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I saw a man telling a young boy, do not cry, because we are in the land of martyrs. We will be shaheed. Just say, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. you will be in paradise, inshallah, and you as a shaheed will be able to intercede for 70 others. So they remain steadfast and they see paradise in front of them as if they are already there. And they do not fear death, for death is freedom. And Imam Ali goes on to state, the muttaqeen always blames themselves and are afraid of their deeds. And a couple of days ago, I seen on social media a post of a young lad, a young boy who wrote all his deeds on a piece of paper. He wrote, Monday, I slept without doing wudu. Tuesday, I only sent 70 salawat upon the Prophet instead of 100. Wednesday, I missed Isha. Friday, I did this. Saturday, I did this, and so on and so forth. And he was documenting his deeds and feeling as if they were insufficient and making an account of himself before his inevitable martyrdom. And that's what I link with the Imam when he says the muttaqeen always are afraid of their deeds because they always see what they've done as insignificant, which pushes them to continue doing good. And these next lines are self-explanatory. The Imam says the peculiarity of any of them, of these muttaqeen, is that you see he has strength in religion, determination along with leniency, faith with conviction, eagerness in seeking knowledge in forbearance, moderation in riches, devotion in worship, gracefulness in starvation, endurance in hardship, desire for that which is halal, pleasure in guidance, and hatred from greed. Such people perform virtuous deeds but still feel afraid. In the evening, he is anxious and offers thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in the morning, his anxiety is to remember God. That the first thing they wake up, they think about is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They pass the night in fear, and when the morning rises, they are joy over the favor and mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that they have received. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So just to conclude the first part, there's a lot that has been said and more that can be said, and a lot more that we can learn from the Palestinians on an individual level and on a social and a global level. On a personal level, these events have re-emphasized for me the removal of arrogance and wastefulness. So what do I mean? So now I think to myself, how dare I waste water when I do wudu, or waste a single drop of water? How dare I waste food? How dare I do any of this when people in Gaza, in Syria, in Afghanistan, in many parts all over the world do not have food, do not have water, do not have shelter, or any of these basic needs that we take for granted. Hence why I emphasized right at the beginning when we did a few moments of reflection for the Palestinian people that this is a luxury that people do not have and that we take for granted sometimes. Such people are blocked from accessing water and food and shelter. And this is a message for all of us to ponder on when we leave here today, to re-evaluate ourselves, especially in light of this genocide, especially in light of the recent earthquakes in Morocco a few months ago and in Afghanistan, to be appreciative of what we have and truly be appreciative of the blessings given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I say to all of us today and watching online that let the shackles of the world loosen their grips upon us. The world is waking up due to the genocide taking place. It starts with us protesting for Palestine, which has a knock-on effect and highlights our need to support the other oppressed people and nations in all corners of the world, in any which way we can. It just doesn't stop with the Palestinians. And this movement, this awakening, is becoming a worldwide phenomenon. And we should continue while the momentum is rolling. We should learn steadfastness from the Palestinians, whether that means continue boycotting certain products. And we've seen the positive effects of this boycott. And if you can live in a world without Pepsi and Coke, anything is possible. Because I know many people have been addicted to these drinks, but Alhamdulillah, we're moving away and our mentality is shifting. So we must continue doing what we're doing, posting, sharing stories of Palestine, Afghanistan, Congo, and so on and so forth. And just before I do the dua, we have a news that there's been a pause or a temporary stop. Let it be noted that you do not pause a genocide. You pause a FIFA game. You pause playing games. You do not pause a murder, a genocide, a massacre. You put an end to it. Because we know once these hostages have been released, it'll be life back to normal. The continuous bombings, the continuous massacre in their murderous regime. And also, this pause has come at a convenient time for the Black Friday sales. So we need to continue our efforts and boycott this too, because there's no cause for celebration or relief here. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we beg you to help the oppressed people all over the world. Ya Allah, keep us away from oppression and injustice. Ya Allah, please can you accept our efforts, however little they are. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفر إنه كان توابا. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the next few minutes in this part 2, like I said, we'll just explore some of the possible solutions that we can partake in that may resolve the issue at hand. I feel like the biggest threat to terror and terrorism in this genocide, the biggest threat is love, harmony, and peaceful coexistence. Because clearly bombing a small strip of land with 20 to 30,000 tons of bombs is not working. Using white phosphorus is not working. It didn't work in Iraq, it didn't work in Siberia, it's never worked and it never will. You cannot simply bomb a country to freedom or bomb a country until you get peace. It doesn't work like that. We can see from past figures like Mandela and Martin Luther King the impact of peaceful protests, boycotting, lobbying, and raising awareness. Yes, Martin Luther King himself paid a price for his dream. He paid a price for his I Have a Dream speech, which resulted in the persecution, abduction, imprisonment, and eventually his own death to achieve a right that black people and white people should be seen as equals. Such a small, insignificant thing, and history repeats itself. Yet we do not learn that killing people will not bring peace, will not bring equal status amongst humans. I imagine a world where the Israeli government accepted a two-state solution and which was endorsed by the Palestinian authorities. Imagine in Palestine, Muslims, Christians, Jews, and non-religious people living together in peace and harmony, living together as either brothers and sisters in faith or equals in humanity, as it was before the regime. And this brings me on to a point mentioned by Bassem Youssef, the Egyptian comedian, to Piers Morgan. So Piers asked this question to Bassem. He goes, how would you resolve, he calls it a conflict, how would you resolve the conflict between Israel and Palestine? So Bassem replied, if a doctor has a patient who is suffering from illness, in order for the patient to recover, the doctor would recommend rest, eating well, and medication. And then He would let the body with its own immune system repair itself. And he says this is the compassionate stance. With love and a bit of medicine, sleep, water, rest, the person themselves will get better. They just need the right environment. Then Basim says the doctor would not come in and get a hammer and start hitting the patient more on top when he's already ill, because obviously his condition is going to worsen. So he says in order to get peace in this region, the Palestinians firstly need to have access, basic human rights, water, food, shelter. Their land shouldn't be stolen. They need electricity. If they are treated with humans like humans with value, they can look after themselves and be self-sufficient. If they're treated with love and respect as humans, they're not going to see the occupying force as enemies. But if they're continuously, generation after generation, having their land stolen, their houses destroyed, their crops burnt, their olive trees being destroyed, what is their reaction? It's not going to be love and peace. Violence is going to be met with violence. And today, most of the world has woken up to the plight of the Palestinians. But this is because anyone with a heart, with an ounce of humanity, recognizes that this is a genocide in every sense of the word. Men, women, children, they're being killed as though these world leaders are playing some sort of video game. New weapons are being tested on millions of people to see how they burn, what effect does it have, how good are they destroying. And they're doing it upon people that has no navy, no air force, no army, nothing. And on top of that, now they have no food, no water, no electricity, no hospitals now. And the term war in this context is wrong. This is not a war, it's anything other than that. This is an absolute holocaust in every sense of each letter of the word Holocaust. This is an actual Holocaust. And the world has learned that true terror is fabricating stories of babies being beheaded, not caring about one's own citizens, killing one's own citizens to justify rape, murder, and torture. True terror is creating false propaganda to justify the killing of babies, and beyond babies, killing fetuses 7 days old. True terror is not speaking out against injustices. True terror is when the aggressor tries to control the narrative and saying, we are the people of light and they are the people of darkness. True terror is reducing humans to rodents, to animals, hence extermination becomes justified. True terror is bullying others. Why? Because no one will stand up for this group. No one will stand up for the bully. But no more. We are waking up. The Ummah is waking up. This genocide has done something which seemed impossible before. Somehow it's united the Sunni and Shi'i all over the world. And it shows that, as Sheikh Arif continuously says, it shows that beyond the lens of religion and sects, it is our humanity that unites us. So once we look beyond the I'm a Shi'i and I'm a Sunni and I'm a Muslim and I'm this and I'm that, we see that it's the heart and the human heart that unites us all. And I ask this question just before I wrap up. Was it not the Prophet who checked upon his neighbor, who every day, his Jewish neighbor was throwing garbage on him every day, and the one day he didn't? What did the Prophet do? He checked upon this person who was ill and tended and cared for this person. Was it not Imam Ali and Imam Hussein, in the context of war, in the context of battle, when their opponents were asking them for water, they gave them water? Was it not Imam Hussein who cried, Imam Zain al-Abidin, who cried when he seen an animal, he couldn't even bear an animal to be thirsty and not fed? So let's learn humanity from the beacons of humanity, from the shining lights of humanity. So let's come together, inshallah, pray on time, pray in jama'ah with our brothers and sisters, pray tahajjud side by side, collectively pray for everyone, regardless of color, ethnicity, religion. Because as Muslims, we are fortified within an ummah. We become weakened when we start forming groups and subgroups. And I leave you with this question that I started with. What is your price of a dream and what is their price? وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. صلوات.